I was just sitting here getting ready to head into work, and a few things came up this morning that I thought might be a good time to chat about. I think most of you know our story, mine and Cynthia's story. We tried to get started investing in real estate back in 2007 or so, and it wasn't a great time. They were handing out loans right and left, and we got a couple of those bad loans. We picked up a couple of properties and were able to hang on to them for about a year before everything went uh, and adjusted and turned upside down. So we ended up losing those properties. We ended up going through bankruptcy in 2010. I hadn't really done good in the area of planning for my retirement, so I reached my mid 40s and was starting to get little bit nervous about the fact that I didn't have any retirement savings at all. So I also at that time ran across Bigger Pockets because I was doing some research and trying to figure out a way to start building a retirement. I started looking into retirement accounts and things like that, and realized that I wasn't going to be able to fill those accounts up fast enough to make a difference. And in that research, I ran across Bigger Pockets, and I've said before, one of the first interviews I saw was with Brendan Turner and David Green, and David Green being a police officer, picking up rentals so that he could retire from that job in the future. And that reignited my interest in real estate. It was always still there in the background for me. I figured that was the only, um, well, not the only way, but probably one of the best ways that we could build a retirement for me. My wife, Cynthia, is a teacher. She has a small retirement savings. So we got started on the path again. And like I said, we were on Bigger Pockets and found Michael Zuber, and from there everything just exploded. And we found through him we found Dion and Matt and Millennial Mike and a few other people in the group. We ended up going through some mentorship programs. We went through Brick by Brick Wealth with Casey Franchini. We went through one with Ashley Hamilton in Detroit, her masterclass. We're in Dion's, and we've taken Matt's course. So that's our story in a nutshell. But some of the things that I like to talk about are the things that we've learned on the journey. And one of the things is the language. It's a little bit intimidating in the beginning, right? Because there's things like DTI, debt to income ratio, how important is your credit score, um, cash out refinances, rate and term refinances, recasting a mortgage, different things like that. Buying down points when you're getting a loan on a property. There's some calculations to do there. How far should you buy it down? How long is it going to take to recoup what you pay to buy it down? Things like that. So that's been huge for us, and not just applicable in the real estate space, but for our the rest of our financial position in life as well. Some of the other things that come to mind are once you buy a property, and things like stabilization and optimization, and um, the difference between those two things. How long does stabilization take? Um, and what kinds of things do you do to optimize your income from an asset? A few people in the group lately have been talking about the current market. So we're in October of 2024, And a few people out there have mentioned that the rents in their markets seem to have softened a bit. I think Zuber and Casey were talking the other day, and in the Memphis market, she said things slowed down about 10% as far as rents. And we're we're really in the middle of that right now. In our St. Louis market, we have two properties that we purchased in the last month that we're getting ready to rent, and that was a big concern for me too. If rents are softening, and I ran my numbers analyzing the property at certain rents because that's what they were at the moment. I didn't do the max rents, and that's never a good idea. But uh, I was I was probably 10 or 15% below the market average, and now with things coming down, maybe that much, uh, the purchases will still be fine, but it's not going to be as much cash flow as we were anticipating. And even though the cash flow will be a little bit less, that was still with taking money out for expenses like capex, vacancy, and maintenance. And so even if the rents dropped a little bit, it's still going to be cash flowing. It just won't be quite as much. So that's something that's helping me stay positive as well. Um, some of the suggestions, because some people in other markets were mentioning that their rentals are staying on the market longer. They've had to, maybe they've dropped rents a little bit, but our mentors over the last week or so have been dropping in some suggestions on things that might help the rental process. Like they mentioned taking good photos of your property, maybe highlighting a good, or maybe the best um, aspect of your property. And I think Zuber even talked about, driving by the exterior of the property and making sure that looks good and it can compete with other homes in the neighborhood. Some other things people do is maybe offer a half off the first month's rent, and that might enable you to keep the rents up where you were hoping they would be. After that first month, you'll be getting the same rent that you were shooting for in the first place. So that was helpful. Um, I often think about, like in my situation, growing up, um, we didn't have a lot of money, and my parents were very hardworking. I think my mom was definitely the entrepreneur. She was always in some kind of a business or another, and I think I get my entrepreneur mindset from her. My dad was very hardworking, but he couldn't save a nickel. And now, or growing up, it, I'm glad that I finally am in the position to where we can invest in some investment properties. Because for me, seemed like every time I had a chunk of money in the bank, something happened and we would have to use the money. So now my thinking is, as soon as we get a chunk, drop it into a property as soon as we can. That way, um, we have something to show for it. And then if something does happen and we need money, we'll find it somewhere else. We always have been able to do that. And it's just been a way of the way my life has gone. Um, you know, you get 10 or 20 grand in the bank, and I'm a contractor, so maybe the engine in one of the vans goes out, or transmission, or tires, or there's so many other things. Even around the house, things come up. So that money would just kind of leave the savings account little by little, and then we have to start all over again. But I think now, having purchased a few properties and having those down payments in the properties, I don't think, well, right now we don't think we're ever going to sell them. But um, if we ever had to, at least if values stay where they're at or hopefully grow a little bit, we'll have a little bit more money to pull out if we needed to. Because when you do sell it, then you're going to have the costs of the sale to the agents and things like that. Usually I calculate around 8 or 9% coming off the top, and you would get what's left over. So when people talk about buying and selling right away, it's not a good idea because you wouldn't get all your money back out. It's nice to be able to have that property appreciate at least 10%. Then you would get the same amount that you put in. So I hope this was all helpful. And if there are any terms out there that you don't understand, I always invite people to reach out to us. If we don't know the answer, I'm sure we know somebody who does. But you can get a hold of me at oldguyrei@gmail.com, and we should talk. I also was wondering if there are any people. I'm on the Central Coast in California near Santa Cruz. I know a few people over the hill about 45 minutes from us that are in the group, maybe 3 or 4. But it would be interesting to see if there are any other folks around that might be up for getting together in person someplace, have coffee or breakfast or lunch or whatever, just to chat for a little bit. We'd be excited to meet you. Thanks.